Okay, it's the end of the session. That was Manny, and this is Marlow, who I've been calling a girl the whole time, but Marlow is actually a boy. And this handsome fellow, why am I blanking on your name? Paco, I remembered. See, it just took my synapses a minute to kick in. All right, and this is their roadmap to success. Now, basically, you're going to be a little squirmy. You're going to want to get down. How about you just hang out with us and we film this real quick? All right, so basically, I primarily worked here with Paco here. Paco, this is his third home. He's from the Mastiff Humane Society, and he's got a reputation of being a little bit aggressive. I don't see him as an aggressive dog. I see him as an insecure or a fearful dog. And we don't know why, and knowing why would help, but it's not necessary to know why to help him. Basically, I believe he's got cortisol in his blood because I think he's stressed out. The guardians, like a lot of people who rescue dogs, felt bad about the dog and kind of provided a lack of structure. And that's kind of one of the things that we do as humans is we rescue a dog. We want the dog to think, hey, you're in a happy place. There's no more rules for you. You can do whatever you want. But that can sometimes confuse dogs into thinking that they need to be in charge of or protective of or possessive of their humans. And often when that's the case, the dog will start acting out. It also can amplify their stress. If he thinks he's in charge of humans, and when somebody comes in, he tells the humans, hey, that person shouldn't be in here. I don't like the cut of their jib. And we ignore him or chastise him. He's like, they're not listening to me. I know I'm explaining for you. Yes. Oh, who's a good boy, Paco? By incorporating rules and structure, we can actually help to shrink the dog's world and have the dogs feel like, I'm not in charge of the world. The humans have got things under control. I can relax and be a dog and worry about chasing my tail, grabbing bones, playing with toys, and all the rest of that fun stuff. Okay, so we talked about some ways to add rules and structure. We'll start off with structure. Structure, I recommend the guardian start petting with a purpose. That means that if Paco or any of the dogs come up and nudge us or jump up on us for attention, they're telling us what to do. And if we pet them, we're going to amplify or reinforce that. So instead, come on, buddy. Come on, you can do it. There you go. And so instead what we're going to do is if I want to pet the dogs, we're going to tell the dog to sit. Sorry, sitting, we're asking it to come and sit on the other side of us or ask it to lay down. Once the dog sits or lies down, we're going to pet it under its chin and say just the command word. Just sit, just come, just down, just whatever it is. Not good, not sit, just sit. And then we can pet the dog as long as we want at that point. What we're telling the dog is that it has to sit to earn the affection from us. This will help boost the dog's self-esteem because instead of being given things, it's earning it. It helps the dog practice sitting, which is a nice practice of a desired behavior. Sitting is a more subordinate position, which helps the dog's mindset. And it helps the dog understand if I want something from the human, I have to pay for that attention, and I pay for it through a currency of obedience. Marlow, you want to get down, huh? All right, so now let's say that the dog comes up and I just want to pet it. I'm still going to ask the dog to sit. And that's why it just understands that I have to do this in order to get petted or attention from humans. And there's a term for this. We call it manding or learning to mand. I would let you down, but I think you're going to fall. Here, we'll help you there. He's blind, so we don't want him to get injured. There we go. And that's why he's wearing the diaper. He was partying late last night, and he just can't hold his water. All right. So that's petting with a purpose. Petting with a purpose is asking the dog to do something to earn that affection or that attention. Now, even if you just want to pet him, you're still going to ask the dog to do it. Now, if we come in the room and we see someone's petting without a purpose or we suspect they're petting without a purpose, we're going to tell that person paycheck. Paycheck just means I think you may have forgotten, so you have to stop petting. You tell the dog to sit again, and then when the dog sits, you pet it under its chin and say the word sit. And then at that point, you pet the dog for as long as you want. But it just has to do something to earn it, and then we can tell the other person, look, I asked the dog to sit before you came in the room, and when you closed the door and the dog stood up, I continued petting. So paycheck's just a gentle reminder. Now, the other side of this coin is what I call passive training. Passive training, sit, that's passive training right there. He sat. I didn't ask him to sit. I wasn't influencing him to sit. He just happened to do it organically. When he did it, I marked it by saying the word sit within 3 seconds and offered some positive reinforcement, in this case, petting. So for dogs, you have a window of 3 seconds to correct or reward them for them to have the ability to make the connection. Everybody, come here. Come here. I don't want to force. There we go. I want him to want to do it. We become buddies. He barked at me. He bit me once or twice, but it wasn't anything personal. He was just saying, I'm so worked up and I just don't know what I'm doing. So the more that we provide rules and structure, we can help reduce the cortisol in his blood, and he can start feeling more relaxed about meeting new people, which is definitely something he's going to need to do, but when the time is right. So for passive training, it's just waiting for the dog to offer you any behavior that you want and then marking it and saying the command word and only the command word. Not good sit, just sit. Every time he brings you a toy, name the tiger, tiger. Name the other one pretzel. Name the other one star or whatever it is. B-bone or G-bone or whatever it is. So come up with a name for each toy. Now, every ball can just be ball. But every bone can just be bone. But if it's a specific toy, name it a specific toy. And that way you can actually have a better vocabulary with the dogs. Speaking of vocabulary, one of the things I'd like the guardians to do is come up with a list of the official command words. I didn't go over this in the session, but most of us assign 10 command words for every command expression or action. Come here, come here, come here, over here boy, here dog's name, whistle, dog's nickname, tap my thigh. Now the dog has to listen for 10 words for each command, and we say between 2,000 and 11,000 words a day. That's way too many words for the dog to listen for. So one of the things I like the guardians to do is come up with a list of the official command words. And let's say it's focus means to look at me, crash means to lay down, whatever it is. So and the word is here, let's say. So if I say come here, and one of the guardians says vocabulary, I would say here. So I'm going to consolidate and just go down to one word. It makes it easier for the dogs to understand what we want. Creating vocabulary is easy in terms of directional commands, getting the dog command to leave the room. So what I would do is, if the dog is, let's say this carpet area right here, if somebody's eating here, the dog should not be allowed on this particular carpet while the person here is eating. Well, we can ask the dog to leave, but first we have to put in context. So what I would do is I would touch Manny's nose with a treat, and I would throw it just right outside the carpet. When he goes over there and licks it up, I would say the word out. And that way I'm putting context, leaving the room is out. And I would come back, I would toss the other half, I'd tear the treats in half because they're little dogs, and then throw the other half off over there maybe. And then when he goes off the carpet and licks it up, we say the word off, or excuse me, out. Now, if we want to teach him to go in the kitchen, we go to the doorway outside the kitchen, touch his nose with the treat, and throw it inside. When he goes in and licks it up, we would say the word kitchen. So that way we're creating a vocabulary: kitchen, bedroom, dining room, den, office, etc., etc. And we can tell the dog office, and it runs the office. It knows what we want. Guardian's doing a great job with passive training right now, off camera. Let me see. Directional commands can be helpful with that. Then if the dog is here and we've already taught what out means and it's not doing it, well, then we can use the escalating consequences. Remember, the first one is to hiss 1 time per incident. Second consequence is stand up abruptly, turn to face the dog, keep that dog in front of you while you pivot at the waist until it stops moving. When it stops moving, then you want to take 2 steps backwards and only 2 steps, pause for 1 second, then go back to doing what you're doing. If what you were doing was doing what I'm doing now and sitting, when you sit down, you should expect the dog to challenge you again. So don't sit deeply on the couch like I am now, sit on the edge. And then you might have to stand up and do it again. You should expect to. Don't get upset if you have to. So that's the second consequence. The third one is to march deliberately at the dog. March at the dog until the dog turns sideways to you. This is the one you're going to use if you're enforcing an invisible boundary around this area or in the kitchen. Now, if it's right here with this carpet, if I march towards the dog, I march towards the dog until it turns sideways or greater away from me. As soon as it turns sideways, I stop and I freeze in place, and then I wait for the dog, and then I go to the second consequence. Then I'm pivoting as long as the dog's moving around the room. When it's stationary, I take 2 steps and only 2 steps backwards, pause for 1 second, and go back to doing what I'm doing. However, let's say that I march at the dog and the dog's turned sideways, but it's still on the carpet. Well, now it's still breaking the rule. So I would bump into the dog, and when you march towards the dog, you want to move with them with some intent. You want them to be like, oh, I better get out of the way, I'm going to get run over. And as soon as the dog crosses offside the carpet, that's when I stop. I stop enforcing at the point, the line of delineation. This is how I determine where the boundary or the border is. Now the dog's probably going to try to go to the side, so he steps to the side. He steps to the side again, I step to the side one more time. Third time I'd step forward into the side, diagonal. So the more the dog challenges me, I'm off the carpet. But before, you just stay at the line. And those are ways of disagreeing with the dog. If you forget how to do those, message me. I have a video on escalating consequence. Come here, buddy, that I can share with you. Come on. You can do it, Manny. There we go, buddy. He's like, this is where the treat pouch is, and it's open. Maybe I can get me some free loot. He's a smarty pants. All 3 of these dogs are smart. That's why one of the first things we talked about was teaching the dogs new tricks and commands. So I'd like the guardians, there's 2 guardians in the house. What I'd like them to do is to take turns. 1 week, guardian A teaches the dogs to roll over, or hurricane, or whatever the command is. And then we teach the other guardian what that command is, and all week long we practice that. Every time we want the dog to sit or to eat or go out the door, or whatever, it has to do whatever the command is. Then at the end of the week, they should have it down pretty good. Teach them separately. Don't try to teach them together. That will make it too hard. Then the next week, this Guardian B takes over. And Guardian B teaches a different trick. And once the Guardian has taught the dogs, each dog the trick individually, then we basically practice it all week long. Before we're going to open the door, you're going to have to sit or beg or whatever it is. And back and forth until we've both Guardians have taught 4 new commands. On average, the dogs in the United States know 10 commands, and I'm not sure, I didn't ask how many commands they know. He would be really easy to get him in a bed because he pretty much does it anyways, and you can use passive training to teach him for that sort of stuff. But the more tricks and commands that the humans in the house are teaching him, the better the dog's going to feel about itself in terms of self-esteem and confidence, the more respect it's going to have for the human as the authority figure, the more it's going to respect them as authority figures because they're the ones involved in actually helping acquire that new skill. And we have now different ways of directing the dog and distracting the dog away from whatever it's focusing on. So really, there's a lot of things going on there. Let me see, what else did we go over? We went over potty training. I'll go over potty training again real quick. Come up with a new command word. These dogs have accents in the house, but I think the word and the way it was introduced are a little bit confusing. So what you do is for a week, take the dog outside, and every time, and the 3 times it's most likely to go, right after waking up, 5 minutes after eating, and 15 minutes after the start of heavy playtime. So if these 2 knuckleheads are running around, yes, talking about you, buddy, that's awfully cute. Beg, that's passive training. Or maybe grovel is a funnier word for that. And so basically, if they start roughhousing, look at their clock, and if 15 minutes later, take them outside. Now, as soon as they start to pee or poop, we want to say the word business, or whatever the word is that we're going to use. One time, and say it in a normal tone of voice, not too high or too low, just medium tone of voice. As soon as you get done, sit. That's passive training. As soon as they get done, crouch down, and that will usually cause the dog to come over you, pop a treat in its mouth, and when the treat goes in the mouth, say the word business or whatever the word is. And for any trick or command, always say the command word after the treat goes into their mouth. It'll make them look at it a little bit brighter. And if you're manipulating a dog, try to keep the treat within an inch of the dog's nose. If you go like this, the dog will stop tracking. So when you're trying to get the dog to move, come like this. I'm actually trying to show you with the treat. There we go. So if I go like this, he stops tracking. I'm going to look up, down. Keeping it with about 4 inches of the nose is going to help the dog be more engaged with it. Okay, so what was I just talking about there, Paco? I forgot. Oh, yes. Now, when he gives you eye contact, it's good for the humans here, but that's something we might need to work on. I tried to show him a focus exercise. It was just too advanced for where he's at, so we might need to do crash. We might need to set up a follow-up session if the Guardians want to work on that, or if it just message me and I can send you a link to one of the videos. You can try doing it just from watching my video. It's not that hard, but it would be a great one for guests to do with him to help him start feeling better about new people. I just don't think he has a lot of experience meeting new people, and once he gets a couple people he likes, he feels possessive over them, and he doesn't want anybody else to take them away. All right, so let me see, what was I just talking about? Potty training. So for the potty training, because one of the problems they have is pooping in the house. So, and Manny over there is a 2-pooper dog. He poops once, then wanders around and poops a second time about 5 minutes later. So if you feed your dogs consistently at the same time, start writing down the time that each dog poops. Put that in the exercise journal that we talked about. And then basically after a while, you start noticing the window that he needs a potty. Well, then what we could do is if it's a weekend or a time where we can work it out with our schedule, when it gets to be that window, that before he gets a chance to poop in the house, pick him up and carry him around. And so he doesn't, and to the point where he starts whimpering and whining and squiggling because he wants to get down because he wants to go poop. Well, then we put him on a leash and we take him out for a walk. Now use this new martingale collar that I hooked you up with because that way he won't be able to slip it off his leash. And plan on taking him for like a half an hour walk. When they're walking, just like us, it gets the metabolism moving and stuff starts going through our system. And he's going to eventually, sometimes you just got to poop. You don't have a chance to, he only wants to poop in the house. He doesn't want to poop outside. Some dogs, there's a lot of reasons for it. But when he does that, I would give him a jackpot. Have 5 of these treats. So after he poops, I would be like, business, 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 business. That way he's like, holy cow, what did I just do to get all these treats? We want to hopefully rectify that situation and repeat it. And so if you do this every day for about a week, you should be able to say business, and if he bounces up and down, then you know, yes, he has to go. If he doesn't have to go, then he just looks at you like this. That's awesome. Manny's already going to indoor. All right, some of the rules we talked about, not being allowed on the furniture. He's breaking one of the rules because this looks better if I have a dog on camera. But basically, we created a dog bed over there. Now, the rule for his shouldn't be, for the furniture, Exception of the beds, the dog should not be allowed in the furniture for a minimum of 30 days or as long as the problems are still going on. At the end of 30 days, invitation, allowed on the furniture with invitation and only for good behavior. So if I invite him up, he started growling, he'd have to get down. Now, if he's growling at a guest and I push him down towards the guest, it might cause a fight, so don't do that. I like to teach dogs to get off the couch. I like to be force-free. So I would touch his nose with a treat and then throw it on the ground. And when he jumps down to get it off, I would say the word off. One thing I forgot to finish, I covered a lot in the session. The guardians asked me, how do we keep him off the furniture when we're gone? There's something called X-mats. X-mats are little plastic, they almost look like a book. You unfold them, there's little tiny plastic spikes on them. The dog won't want to lay on those. So I put 1, 2, 3, because the dogs knock these off and then they lay on the cushions on the floor. So we'll talk about teaching the dog to go to the dog bed in a second. And then you put them on their bed and on each cushion and one in that chair over there. Maybe turn the ottoman aside. So this way the dog doesn't see that as an option, even though it doesn't appear that there's anything on the couch. They jump up and they see it and they're like, oh. And then after a while, they get conditioned not doing that once the neural pathway is aligned. Now, at the same time I take away the furniture, I always give the dogs a dog bed at the same time. I like to put it under the furniture, under the TV. So what I do, get a light cream, a white, or a light gray. Make sure there's no pattern on it, and make sure it's full like a cushion like this, not one that has ruffles in it, and no pattern. And then basically all we do is just put it in front of the TV. I get them on Amazon, or not Amazon, a Groupon. I find that's the cheapest place to get them. You want a memory foam or a Sealy Posturepedic. That's a good sign he's comfortable. Throw it on there, and when he licks it up, say the word indoor. Do that for about 10 treats, 3 times a day for about 3 or 4 days, and after a while, he should be going there on his own. Now, the first way we do it is we toss a treat on there, or we leave a treat on there, epic fail, and then when the dog, or we lead the dog over to sit or LAY, pop the treat in their mouth and say the word indoor. He goes over and licks it up, we say indoor. That's to entice him to go there. The next step is to reward him. So if he gets up on his own volition, goes and lays down there, I might pull out a treat and toss it. Or if I don't have a treat, I would just say the word indoor to create that positive association. So at first it's to entice him to go there, then it's to reward him for going there. And after a while, he'll start going there more and more frequently. And that way they have a nice place to go. Because he likes to hang out under chairs and things, I would recommend the guardians get a small kennel for him, just big enough for him to stand and sit and lie down in without having to curl up. And take the door off. And make sure it's a plastic kennel like the one that you have. Don't get a wire one for this. And take the door off or just assemble it without the door. And then the way I do this is I have videos on my website that show how to do this, but all you gotta do is just take a treat, touch his nose, throw it right in front of the kennel. And he'll go and get it and he'll have that lean that we talked about. Keep on throwing it outside in the front of the kennel until he walks over there with his feet underneath him and no lean. The next step is throw it just right inside the kennel. When you're doing this, make sure there's not a whole bunch of blankets, just a liner like you have in this kennel is all. And then at first all he has to do is stick his head in and take the treat and run away. And then after you do it, after you go a little bit further and deeper into the kennel until eventually he's got to walk all the way into the back to get it. And then just like the dog bed, we're occasionally going to leave a treat in there. So every time he goes in there, it's a positive experience. And the more that happens eventually, he'll just start hanging out there on his own. Now he has a safe place that he can retreat to. Oh, shoot, he yawns. Anytime that he needs help or he needs to get away. Speaking of yawns, if he's yawning, licking his lips, his ears are back, or he's breathing heavy or holding his breath, or he's baring his teeth, those are signs of communication. He's not comfortable with something. So we want to take stock of our situation and get him away from whatever it is. Let him know that we're looking out for you and we're going to get you out of that situation. Okay, so that would be rule number 1, no furniture. Another rule, I make the dog sit before I let it in or out the door. We don't have a backyard or a fenced-in backyard here, so the guardians take him out on a leash. Go to the door and tell him to sit. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, walk away, sit down. Wait 1 minute. Don't do this if he has problems with potty training, because this is just, that overrides that. Once that's taken care of though, go to the door, and if he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I walk away for 60 seconds, then I go back and I repeat the command 1 time. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds this time, I walk away for 2 minutes. Next time for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. I keep on doubling the length of time until eventually when I go over and sit, he sits, then I open the door. That becomes the reward. Now, I have a video on my website that shows you how you can teach the dog to stay at the door even though the door opens wide. That's the next stage, but it takes a little bit more practice. Message me if you want to go over that. I'm happy to send you the video. We talked about upping his exercise. He's a puppy. He needs more exercise. He's high energy. Walks are great for him. The martingale will really help with that. But also other ways of exercising. If he likes to chase the laser, create a circuit that he has got to do for that. Throwing the ball or treats up and down the stairs the way I described. Start that exercise journal. Write down the time, the date at the top. Make 2 columns, one for Manny, one for Paco. Write down 8:15, Manny 10-minute walk. Paco, 8:20, 25-minute walk or whatever it is. And then play fetch, the number of fetches, the stairs, number of times up and down the stairs, and eventually, and then at the end of the day, give a letter grade. Eventually, and then the next day, if they didn't get an A, play around with the elements. Add an extra whole exercise, or just add a couple of repetitions to the existing exercises. Keep playing around with those elements until eventually you find he started getting an A+ behavior grade for the day. Now we know what he needs. Ideally, you're looking for him to get exercise about every 2 to 4 hours. Set him up for success. Before a guest comes over, exercise him first. Make sure he has at least 20 minutes to cool himself off before the guest arrives, though. We don't want to overdo it. We don't want to underdo it, but exercising will really help. Now, the video above talks about meeting the guest outside, taking a little bit of a walk. There's a lot of great little things there for him. The next stage that I didn't talk about for that was if the guest comes over and Paco is comfortable enough to walking towards them, you should pull out a treat or two, rip it in half, toss it on the floor. Don't make sure the dog sees you do it, but don't try to entice him. Come and get it, it's right here. No, just toss it there. Let him come and get it on his own. If after a minute or so he won't come and get it, throw another one a little bit closer to the dog. The idea is we want the dog to move towards the guest. Even if it's just a lean at first, that'll work. And then eventually 1 step and then I move away. Then 2 steps and I move away. We keep on doing this until eventually he feels comfortable enough to go all the way over, get the treat, and walk away. The next stage would be we'd hold the treat out in our hand, preferably to our side with a flat hand. And don't encourage, just let him see that you've got it and offer it there. And if he comes over, if he does lick it off, keep your hand there in front of him. A lot of times they'll come back and lick it a second time. That gives another opportunity to sniff and smell you, which is again the way that dogs should meet. What else do I need to go over? Make sure you're eating before you feed the dogs. And if they don't eat, dump the food out of the bowl as soon as they walk 7 paces away and put that empty bowl back down. And I would feed in the order of their rank. So I would feed Marlow. I would not eat Marlow, but I would feed Marlow first. Then I would feed Manny, and then I would feed Paco. And when Marlow's eating, the other 2 dogs are not allowed to be within 7 paces of him. And same thing for the other dogs. The dogs see the humans are controlling the situation. Also, the human who is feeding needs to eat something first. So we get 5 more bites: a chip, cracker, carrot, celery, something crunchy if possible. And then we give the dog permission to eat 1 at a time. It'll take a little bit more time for feeding, but it's the most important activity for them. And if he sees that you guys are eating in front of him, you have more status than him. So that makes you a leader. And then if he sees that when he's eating, you got his back and don't let the other dogs come and sweat on him, then he feels more confident in you looking out for him. And after a while, I have 4 dogs. I just say, go, butt. That means butts. That means go put your butts in the corner. Then I put the food down, I leave the room, and I just yell out the command words. Now, to assign a command word, come up with a command word for each dog that's separate to eat. Maybe his word is lasagna. So when he takes his first bite of food for 2 months, we say the word lasagna. When he hears the word lasagna, he has food in his mouth. To him, lasagna means eat. The other 2 dogs hear lasagna, there's no food in their mouth. It does not mean the same thing. So after a while, you can command them just with that command word. Something else you might want to teach them, one of the tricks you should probably teach them is the stay command. I teach this for 3 Ds. First, for duration. The dog has to stay there for up to 5 minutes with me just right this close. Only after the dog will stay there for 5 minutes do I start moving away, and that's when we start practicing for distance. First 1 step, then 2 steps, and 3 steps, and so on. And eventually we do it with distractions. Put the dog to stay while we have people walking, and a delivery driver coming up, and the front door is open so he can see out, the glass door is closed, and so you see the person approaching, and he's practicing restraining himself instead of running at them and barking at them, telling them to leave. Let me see, what else? I think I've pretty much covered everything here. Now, if there's something I forgot to go over, I want you to please let me know. Get bully bites. The ones I like are from The Natural Dog Company. They're odor-free or low odor. Bully sticks are like 6 inches. A real bully stick is about 12, is quite a bit longer. For these guys, since they're little, I would get the bully bites. It would be a little bit cheaper. It's just the tips and the leftover pieces about that big. Go to the Green Spot, talk to Jess and Whitney. You can go to Pets Earth. They probably have them as well. I don't know if they carry the Natural Dog Company one, but I've gotten some cheaper ones, and they're cheaper for a reason. Your dog will fart all over the place. So I don't like smelling those farts, so I pay the little extra money. Also, you can give him a bully stick when guests come over. Now, we got to make sure the dogs are not guarding against each other, but sometimes giving the dog something to do when a guest is over creates a positive association. When every time a guest comes over, I get a bully stick, or I get a cow's kneecap, or an ear, or a bone or trachea or chicken's foot or something along those lines. So now be careful when he does have that. If somebody comes near him and tries to pet him, a bite would be appropriate because I've got some really high value stuff. If I'm eating something, I'm starving, somebody tries to come over towards me, I'm going to bark at them to get them to move away. So just make sure that when they're having those things that we don't make it into a situation where they have to fight or defend the item. Now, if you do have guests come over, remember, the guest should need to get the dog's attention first, and what you could do is pop a treat in his mouth and then have the guest get up and move away slowly as if in slow motion. Now, I'd like the guardians to really focus on these rules and structure. Oh, a couple other rules. Not being allowed in the kitchen when we're preparing food, not around the dining room table when we're eating. And a great way to set that up is to help them practice, do a dry run. So if you're in the kitchen, microwave a piece of roast beef. First of all, communicate where the lines are by teaching the dog out, and then walk towards the dog and stop at the point of contact. When you do that, then take one step backwards and pause. Left foot, right foot, pause. That will cause the dog probably to start coming forward. You would hiss then and rush forward to the line. And you're going to do a lot of back and forth like this until eventually you get to the point where the dog stays there and doesn't cross the line. Now, when you take a step backwards, remember, your authority goes whatever direction your hips are pointing. So if I'm walking backwards away from the dog and I turn around and face that way, the dog's probably going to run up behind me. So what I do is I would microwave a piece of bacon, put it on the counter, walk away in that measured way, and I have videos for this, so message me if you need help with that. And then simulate cooking. Turn the stove on, turn the oven on, bang some pots and pans around, grab some stuff out of the refrigerator, open some measuring cups and all the rest of the stuff. It smells like and it looks like you're cooking. The dog's going to try to come in, but you're not actually cooking, so you're not distracted. So within that 3-second window, you see the dog and you hiss and you rush towards the dog and stop at the boundary. When the dog sits and lies down outside the boundary, that's when we actually put the bacon away and start actual cooking. We help the dog by doing a warm-up. And now the dog is ready and understands what we want. And then we do our actual cooking and the dog's staying outside. And then also make sure that it doesn't go out a door or up and down stairs or things like that ahead of you. Now, if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to call, preferably texting me. I get so many emails. If you email me, it might take up to a week for me to get back to you, but a text message, especially if you text me his picture, will help. Now, if he gives you guys problems with a camera, message me. I can show you how to do a conditional emotional response or a CER exercise that'll help him for that. Another thing you might want to go on my website and find is a hand targeting exercise. All you got to do is go to doggonproblems.com, click on Dog Training Tips. On the right side of the page, I think I'm on this side for you, there will be a box, a search box. Just type in hand or targeting or target. I'll have a video, a couple write-ups will come up where I show you how to do it. But basically, you flash your hand like that, the dog touches it with his nose, and I take this hand and put the treat on this hand. Once I chop, I keep my hand frozen. But this is a great targeting exercise. So if he's barking or staring at something and somebody holds their hand up and says target, he runs across the room, touches his nose to that hand to get that treat. You redirected him away from whatever it was he was looking at. Okay, well, let me see. Paco, boy, are you a good-looking dog. He really lucked out. He got some great guardians here. They're taking really good care of him. Now that they know what to do, I think that he's going to be getting over this really quickly. Now, if he doesn't, what I'd like you to do is practice for about 2 to 3 weeks on the rules and structure. Once we get an early part of January 2019, whenever you do this, I would like you to set a goal to have one person come by every day for a week. This is a cumulative thing. You're going to make progress, but it works best if you build on it. If you do one person and nobody comes over for 4 days, you're going to lose a lot of what you accomplished. So again, just follow the instructions in the video above. If you have questions about it or want a refresher, call or text me and we'll go over it. But I think if you can get them about 7 to 14 positive interactions, some of these might have to be 2 or 3, 14 people. After a while, he's gonna be like, people are awesome. They come over, they give me treats, they don't, and if they reach for him, he turns his head to the side like that, that's his way of saying no. Have that person stop petting him. And then have him go to the guest. Guest wants to pet him, make sure he comes to them. That's in general a good rule for dogs. Ask the dog to take at least one step towards you. That way the dog is saying, yes, I'm comfortable with. If we go towards somebody and the dog's backing away or turning our head to the side, they're saying, no, I don't want you to do it. If we do it anyways, we're just telling the dog, yes, don't trust me. I'm not listening to you. We want the dog to feel empowered. All right, Paco, This good-looking guy. Oh, look, we're buddies. Yes. Well, this is Paco, and this is Paco's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.